Did you know that SpongeBob SquarePants is mentioned in the official Jeffrey Epstein investigation files more times than hip-hop mogul Russell Simmons? It sounds like a piece of absurd internet trivia, a throwaway joke engineered for social media engagement. But it is a literal, verifiable fact from the federal document dumps. More importantly, it is the exact defense that Russell Simmons has been using from his secure retirement villa in Bali, Indonesia. To watch him now, sitting cross-legged in loose linen clothes, speaking softly about yoga, spiritual enlightenment, and inner peace, is to watch a man who claims to have stepped completely out of the noise of the Western world. He posts about his daily meditation routines and the quiet life he has carved out far away from American culture. To understand how a founding father of American music ended up using a cartoon character as a legal shield in a global sex trafficking scandal, you have to look at a trajectory that started long before these files ever leaked. You have to go back to a time when his name did not evoke court documents, but absolute, unchecked cultural power.
Her Bible, that's what's in the files.
Yeah.
And Deepak Chopra wanted to ask if Jeffrey wanted to go to my house when Deepak was being honored.
There was an era when Russell Simmons was the most important person in any room he entered, without uttering a single word. Everything in hip-hop, everything that dictated black music, black fashion, street culture, and urban capitalism during that generation eventually had to pass through his hands. Def Jam Recordings, the label he co-founded with Rick Rubin in a New York University dorm room, was never just a business entity. It operated as a cultural manifesto. It was proof that an art form born on concrete street corners and in neglected housing projects could be systematized. It proved that a culture the mainstream media actively ignored could generate billions of dollars and reshape the global landscape. Simultaneously, that massive cultural empire required a relentless instinct for spotting talent. Russell Simmons, along with a tight-knit circle of believers, saw the financial value in the rhythm of the streets long before Wall Street caught on. They signed acts like LL Cool J, Public Enemy, Slick Rick, and the Beastie Boys. They took raw, aggressive energy and packaged it into a format that the entire world suddenly wanted to consume. When Def Jam conquered the airwaves, Simmons looked at fashion and realized that the kids buying the records also wanted to wear the lifestyle, leading to the creation of Fat Farm. Then came Rush Communications, a sprawling conglomerate managing television production, advertising agencies, and large-scale philanthropic foundations. For decades, his life was the ultimate blueprint celebrated during university commencement speeches. He was the kid from Hollis, Queens, who looked at an ignored demographic and forced the world to legitimize it. That monumental history is real. No amount of subsequent scandal can erase the material reality of what he built during those golden years. Yet, running parallel to that story of cultural triumph was another, darker narrative, one that had been quietly developing in the shadows of luxury hotel suites, recording studios, and private offices for decades. Long before his name was ever typed into a federal database alongside Jeffrey Epstein, it was being spoken with fear and anger by women who had trusted his power. The arrival of the unredacted Jeffrey Epstein documents sent a collective shockwave through the global media landscape. When those thousands of pages of court files and flight logs finally dropped into the public domain, the internet reacted with a chaotic, unguided stampede. Headlines formed in real time on TikTok and X, and permanent public conclusions were drawn before a single sentence of investigative journalism could be published. It was a digital witch hunt where the mere presence of a name on a page was treated as an absolute conviction of the worst crimes imaginable. The list sent to the United States Congress contained more than 300 names. It was a massive cross-section of global elite society. Celebrities, former presidents, international politicians, tech billionaires, and legendary musicians were all crowded onto the same spreadsheet because the public had spent years hearing about the horrors of Epstein's private island. The immediate assumption was monolithic. If your name was on that list, you were a participant. You knew what was happening, and you actively took part in the exploitation. Russell Simmons was on that list. The moment his name surfaced, the collective internet treated his inclusion as the final, logical piece of a puzzle they had been solving since the dawn of the Me Too movement. It was handled as definitive proof of his moral bankruptcy. However, the legal reality of that list was fundamentally different from what the public imagined. The Attorney General who oversaw the release included a cautionary cover note, stating clearly that the individuals appearing in these documents existed in a wide variety of contexts. The spreadsheet was not a registry of co-conspirators. It was a massive compilation of every single person who had crossed paths with Epstein's network over a 30-year period. Regardless of how minor that crossover was, the files contain names that expose the absurdity of the public's reactionary logic. Icons like Beyoncé, Cher George Clooney, and Bruce Springsteen appear within the documentation. Most tellingly, the files include Janis Joplin, a legendary singer who tragically passed away in 1970, decades before Jeffrey Epstein ever established his criminal network. Her name exists in the archive simply because, at some point, an assistant working for Epstein saved a news article that mentioned her estate. That was the shockingly low bar for inclusion. If an employee in Epstein's office typed your name, you were automatically thrown into the pile. This lack of structural clarity drew intense criticism from inside the government itself. A United States congressman who had co-written the legislation designed to force transparency around the investigation came forward to publicly condemn the methodology of the release. He called the document dump fundamentally irresponsible. His argument was that throwing hundreds of completely innocent names into the same unverified public bucket as convicted sex offenders did not constitute genuine transparency. It constituted systemic confusion. By failing to differentiate between a casual business acquaintance, a saved news article, and an active participant in abuse, the release actually protected the true perpetrators. The small group of monstrous actors who genuinely needed to be exposed were effectively hidden inside a massive crowd of innocent, high-profile names. The congressman noted that placing a musician who died when Epstein was a teenager on the exact same legal plane as a convicted child abuser was utterly farcical. While the media focused entirely on the salacious headlines involving Hollywood stars, the true tragedy of the unredacted release occurred in the background. The real victims of that careless document dump were the actual survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. These were young women who had spent years fighting for justice under the strict legal promise that their identities would remain completely confidential. Many of them were minors when they were subjected to horrific exploitation. When the government published the files without proper redaction, that wall of protection collapsed. The identities of more than 40 confidential victims were suddenly handed directly to the internet. Their real names, and in some instances their home addresses, became instantly visible through basic keyword searches on public databases. Attorneys representing these survivors expressed absolute fury at the Department of Justice. They revealed that they had previously provided the government with a precise list of 350 victims, specifically so their names could be flagged and blacked out before publication. The department, however, appeared to have failed at performing even a basic algorithmic search to verify their own redaction work. This created a sickening irony. The document release instead subjected the victims to a brand new wave of public trauma, forcing them to lock down their phones and watch their names trend on global forums. The famous people received temporary PR headaches. The victims received a permanent invasion of the privacy they had fought decades to secure. It is within this deeply flawed context that Russell Simmons' appearance must be analyzed. From his sanctuary in Bali, where he has lived under a long-term retirement visa since the initial collapse of his American career, Simmons watched the storm break. He had systematically transformed his public image into that of a detached spiritual seeker, filling his social media feeds with clips of him teaching yoga to locals and discussing mindfulness. The silence was broken when a popular South African media outlet, Podcast and Chill, traveled to Bali to conduct an extensive face-to-face interview with the exiled mogul. The hosts brought up the elephant in the room, his inclusion in the newly leaked Epstein files. Simmons did not dodge the question. Instead, he laid out a calm explanation of the exact 2 data points that connected him to Epstein's paper trail. The first connection, according to Simmons, involved a young Ugandan model he had known socially in New York. The woman, who happened to have crossed paths with Epstein's social circle, had wanted to gift Simmons a personal copy of the Bible. It was a brief, entirely ordinary human interaction. However, because Epstein's staff maintained a meticulous bureaucratic archive of everyone their associates interacted with, this small gesture was noted down in a ledger, throwing Simmons into the database over a religious book exchange. The second connection was tied to the world-renowned wellness author, Deepak Chopra. Chopra had been a close personal friend and mentor to Simmons for decades. According to the interview, Chopra had hosted a high-profile gathering, and because of his own extensive social network, he had extended an invitation to Jeffrey Epstein. The event physically took place at Russell Simmons' property, but Simmons maintained that he did not write the guest list, did not extend the invitation to Epstein, and had no personal or business relationship with the man. This single instance of physical presence at his residence was logged by investigators, securing his place on the list. Simmons took great care to emphasize that being mentioned in these documents did not mean what the internet instantly decided it meant. He looked at the cameras and noted that if the public was using the file as an absolute metric of guilt, they needed to look at the data. Whether that SpongeBob defense lands as a genuine piece of vindication or a cynical deflection depends entirely on what you already know about Russell Simmons before the year 2024. Because while the Epstein files are a recent, media-driven controversy, the other narrative surrounding Simmons is a dark, deeply entrenched history that spans over 40 years of American entertainment culture. The Epstein files can be explained away through structural analysis. The other story cannot. When the Me Too movement began dismantling the hierarchies of the music industry, the systemic whispers regarding the hip-hop mogul finally crystallized into public record. More than a dozen women stepped forward, risking their reputations to lodge formal allegations of sexual assault and rape against the co-founder of Def Jam. The dates of these alleged incidents formed a terrifying timeline, stretching from the raw, early days of the company in the 1980s all the way into the corporate luxury of the 2010s. The specific testimonies published by investigative units at the New York Times were devastating in their consistency. Drew Dixon, a brilliant young executive responsible for putting together iconic hit records like the Method Man and Mary J. Blige duet, detailed an environment of constant harassment. The specific testimonies published by investigative units at the New York Times were devastating in their consistency. Drew Dixon, a brilliant young executive responsible for putting together iconic hit records like the Method Man and Mary J. Blige duet, detailed an environment of constant harassment.